Judith Kaye has spent 25 years on New York State's highest court, the Court of Appeals. She has spent the last 15 years as the state's chief judge, the first woman to hold the title. Judge Kaye turned 70 this year, and the law requires that she retire at that age. Judge Kaye leaves a legacy of reform, from expanding the jury pool to establishing alternatives to incarceration. She leaves a legacy of landmark decisions, including the Campaign for Fiscal Equity ruling, directing more money to the New York City schools, the rejection of a death penalty law as unconstitutional, and her dissent in the gay marriage case. Judge Kaye believes that same-sex marriage is or should be seen as protected by the New York State Constitution. She also leaves with some frustration over goals not accomplished, getting the legislature to unify the fractured court system, and perhaps most notably not getting a pay raise for judges, something they haven't had this decade. We'll talk about all of that and how the recession is affecting justice in New York. Judge Kaye, welcome back to WNYC.
Thank you.
Are you bristling at having to step down? Isn't a mandatory retirement age a form of discrimination on its face?
I've stopped bristling because I've had a long time to get used to it, having read the New York State Constitution many, many, many years ago. I guess it's kind of a shock when you do get to be 70, but that's something to be thankful for. And when I put that together with the Constitution, this has been a day long coming.
Has this mandatory retirement age ever been challenged in court? It's based on your status as a member of a group, not your individual competence.
Ironically, it has been challenged in my court many years ago and sustained as constitutional. And yes, I voted for it. Yes, it was a unanimous decision upholding the 70-year age limitation.
On what grounds, just briefly?
Well, we said it was a justifiable, fair, rational decision of those who create the Constitution.
One of your accomplishments was expanding jury service. What's that story you tell about your daughter's reaction to jury duty in the old days?
Well, she once called me and said, Mom, this is a great place to meet guys, when she herself was down there for jury service. And so the story I tell, which of course is fabricated partly, is that I decided at that point to upgrade the jury pool to make it a better place to meet people.
So in all seriousness, you ended exemptions for doctors, lawyers, judges.
Wow.
Who
people
else?
Oh, goodness. We had, I think, 22 categories of automatic exemptions. That meant all you had to do is check a box, and you were automatically excluded from the pool of potential jurors. So who else was there? Firefighters, police officers, people who made prosthetic devices, people who wore prosthetic devices, Christian Science nurses, on and on and on, depleting the jury pool so that the few people left who had no box to check, they had to be there for a minimum of 2 weeks, because we do have a large demand for jurors in the state of New York, and particularly in the city of New York. And so they had to stay. They were on what was called a permanent qualified list. It was no honor to be on that permanent qualified list. That meant you get called like clockwork every 2 years, minimum 2 weeks jury service, no fair, no fair.
Now you go in, and if you're not seated on a jury, you get out in about 3 days, don't you?
Yeah, that irks me too.
Why?
Well, it bothers me when people come up and say, Judge Kaye, what you did was so great. I was only there for a day, and now I don't have to go back for 6 years. It's like we want people to come in to see the interior decoration of our courthouses. No, people should come, be seated on juries. They should be respectfully treated. We should have efficient court proceedings. So this day in and day out doesn't really please me, and it's something we need to work on, because like 82% of the people who are called do get excluded. There's something good about it. They do get to be oriented and see something of our procedures, but they should overwhelmingly be seated, not excluded.